Hello and welcome to a new video. Today is Tuesday, the 29th of November 2016. It is 1858. This video is a brief little addendum slash correction to the two-part video on USA and Canada's successor nations, as you can find it here, that I uploaded a few days ago and all 20 hours ago according to YouTube. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things I want to mention. Chances I'll come across another few. I rewatched both parts, long as they are. This is a little over an hour, 1 hour, 1 minute 52, and this almost 2 hours. I rewatched them and wrote down a few things that I accidentally forgot to mention or wanted to touch back on, and I noted one actual error. So the first thing is actually something that in the video I said I would skip, namely this here column, votes. In the video I said I'd skip this, or I think I said I'd touch on it later, but I forgot to touch on it. What does this mean here, votes? Now, for that, I want to resort this. To actually, sorry, this is wrong. Wait a minute. I need the population. There. Even though the North American continent is in no way, shape, or manner one political entity, as we have established in both of these videos, these are the former second level units. This here actually is the 17 nations that you now have in North America, and as I've explained, they are 4 so-called trade domains. Nonetheless, especially when it comes to trade domain issues, and really when it comes to issues pertaining to North America whole, every blue moon you might find that you need a particular method to actually have a vote on things, namely all the individual nations and really also all of the different domains together. And for that, this vote count exists. I do want to point out that in Europe we have exactly the same thing. This here actually means votes, and if you add it all up, you see that we have 144 votes in Europe, whereas in North America, you have 51 votes total, which once more has to do with the fact that you're just 17 and not 48. I want to show you a particular graphics in the European on the European continent. Into this one here actually. Yes. What you see here is, for clarity's sake, I did away with the national borders of the individual nations just so that you get to see the domains as they are. And I actually wrote down just how many votes are to be found in each of the domains. Okay? Now, the numbers don't matter here because we're going to talk about the North American numbers, but I just want you to show that basically what I'm going to show you now in North America is the same thing that you can see here for Europe. Now, different domains happen to have different numbers. This is strictly based on the population. Area is not considered for that. I do want to point this out. This is strictly based on the population. And as I also showed you in the second part of the two-part video, Northwest domain in Europe has the highest amount of population, thus they also get most votes, namely a total of 26 amongst the nations that make up this domain. And the lowest actually is the South, who's 16. Northeast also happens to have 16, if you don't count European Russia, which is just one nation and thus gets 5 votes as a max for one nation. The same thing actually is taking place here. Now, what happens here is the nations are ranked by population. Okay, as you can see, this is ascending population. And actually, I just realized that Ah, I see. Sorry, wait a minute. This is wrongly sorted because Mexico. I was missing Mexico. It's down here under the added lines for the sum lines for the domains. So let's see. This actually, yeah, there it is. Okay, now this is actually what you should look at. Now we get 51. This is actually distributing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 votes to the 17 nations in such a manner that they're not just, that you actually have, in this particular case working with 17, you have 2 nations that get 1 vote, the smallest 2 nations being Arctica and Alaska get 1 vote for things, and the largest 2 nations being Lakeland and Mexico get 5 votes for such things. 4 times 4 votes, 4 times 2 votes, and in the middle you have 5 times 3 votes. Okay, so it's 2, 4, 5, 4, 2. That is how the number of votes is being allotted to the different 17 nations in ascending sequence of the population. In Europe we have the same thing, just in Europe we do it for 48 nations, blah 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 blah. Okay, now what I wanted to point out was simply explain to you what this actually is, 51. Now as you can see down here, this is really the kind of graphics that I just showed you here, just that here you have it as a graphic. This is how many votes in the individual domains, and here too, other than that one nation domain, Chile/Mexico, you can see that just as with your population, due to the fact that this of course is based on a population, as I mentioned in year 3, not being Mexico domains, the populations are very comparable, and that also means that the vote counts are very comparable. So this is, in North America, once more, this is as fair as you possibly can get it, whereas in Europe it is fair because it's based on population, but nonetheless, of course, 26 votes can bring a bit of more harumph than, say, 16 votes. Okay, my domain here, where Finland is 1 part, actually is 18 votes. Really, quintessentially, it is for anything you want to decide, for instance, pertaining to North America as a trading zone whole, and there, of course, everyone, not here on the European map, but everyone in North America would be concerned with that. And what we do in Europe, or what especially, I can only tell you how I do it in Finland. Finland is a nation with 5 votes, okay? In Finland, the 5 people who are allowed to cast a vote are not by themselves representatives or any such. There is no parliament or congress, you might call it, for the people who may cast these votes. It's actually that some of the existing politicians in each of these nations are allowed and are declared to be those who also get to vote for any such votes pertaining to the entirety of North America. And of course you can have votes within one domain, for example. In Finland the situation is that way, that the 5 votes are being used, so to speak, by me as the Prime Minister, by the Minister of Economy, and by the 3 mayors of our 3 largest cities, Vienna, Budapest, and Prague. Okay, those are the 5 people that we actually will most probably even have this in our sorry, I'm lost for a word here. Well, that is the 5 people who will cast these votes for Finland, and I suggest that you find similar such methods to decide who is allowed to cast these votes actually and vote for representing Arctica, Alaska, and whatnot. What I want to point out is that this is not an assembly of representatives in itself, okay? This is just a right to cast their vote that each nation bestows onto one of its politicians. If in the case of it just being one, more likely than not the leading politician you might have, the whatever you'd call him president, call him chancellor, call him prime minister, whatever you want to call him. And in the case where you have 2 or more, you need 2 or more people to allot these votes to. I just wanted to explain this column because I skipped it in the video and show you how this breaks down for the domains here. I don't have a graphic for that, but just, you know, here it is, actually, the information. Now, I also noted that I forgot to add, so to speak, what here is actually to be found in these four. I left out the two red ones deliberately and just gave you the core Fex Mundi and the Fex Mundi willing execution accounts. If you want to know what these numbers mean and how they come about, I suggest you watch this particular video. This one here, Cigarettes, Erasmus, and the Filth of the World. This is the video where these numbers are being explained, okay? This is where these numbers, where I explain how I came up with the ratio, and this is here where these numbers are laid open for the European continent, which I guess to North America don't really matter much, but I say some of the things that the numbers really mean in this video too, so these two videos are explaining you what this means. If you look at the formula, it's simply 70 out of a million in the category of core Fex Mundi, and it is 800 out of a million in the category of Fex Mundi willing executioners. Okay, this is the infrastructure that is aiding and is working as willing executioners of the core Fex Mundi, and all of this is based, of course, on the population of the specific nation. Now, in places like Arctica, and I do want to point out that if you don't watch the other two videos that I just mentioned, that's the dark figures, okay? So the actual number with a bit of luck might be a little less than that, not that far less than that, and not that much less than that, but they might be a little less than that. This is the dark figure. I assure you it is not any worse than that, right? That's the good news about this. This is the number of core Fex Mundi. As you can see, in Mexico, core Fex Mundi is high, just because this is based on the population, though Mexico is a case where I am rather sure that the Fex Mundi governing, so to speak, over Mexico are not actually in Mexico, though a whole lot of them are Mexicans. I do want to point this out, but they're not necessarily in Mexico. So Mexico is a bit of a special case, so let's keep it with Lakesland, and there the number is dark figure as it might be, but nonetheless is representative. This is the core Fex Mundi, and this is the Fex Mundi willing executionist. Now, what I want to show you really is just to give you a general idea. In all of North America, you have 33,359 as a dark figure, right? So it might be as little as 30, it might actually be as little as 25. Unfortunately, I doubt it's much beneath 25, but the dark figure is 33,359 core Fex Mundi on all of North America. I do mention this number specifically because this is a pathetic little shit amount of inhumans who think they can enslave and ruin and drive into extinction all of mankind. 33,359 lousy little inhuman fuckers. That's all you have to fucking beat to a pulp, slay, shoot dead, nuke, whatever on North America. 33,000 lousy people, dark figure. It doesn't get any more than this. More likely than not, it is quite a bit less than that, actually. Okay? That's all you have to kill over there in order to liberate yourself. And statistically, I'm not going to go through each of these nations individually, but statistically, these are the numbers for each of these new nations. Okay? And this is the number of their aiding infrastructure that is also being utilized as the willing executioners. You know, right, the classic NSA would be in here, and so on and so forth, okay? That's what it means. I do want to point out, talking about the former USA, to a certain extent, and in particular when it comes to this column, not so much this column, but this column, the original, how do I put this? The place of birth might actually be, say, there. That's a representative dark figure for any willing executioners for Fex Mundi originally coming out of Montana or Wyoming. However, these people, due to the fact that a whole lot of the willing execution infrastructure is centralized in North America, they might not necessarily be physically in Wyoming, okay? Whereas this category actually, more likely than not, will be found in those very territories, okay? But this column on North America is more centralized rather than really spread out nicely everywhere. Okay, I want to point this out. So I'm gonna make a little check here because I did mention the votes and I did also mention what I added here, what I forgot to show you. Another thing, you might say, being accustomed to being huge, a nation like the United States of America, you might say, you cannot run a country like as a sovereign nation with 137,000 people. That's not possible. That's like way too few people. No, it's not. Trust me. You can run a country with 137,000 people. I want to show you the situation here. In Europe, we have two nations that are far from 130. What is it? From 137,000. Okay. San Marino and Andorra. And I assure you, these countries can run themselves. No shit. They can. Trust me. You can run a country. And the interesting thing about Arctica is that I want to take you back to the map. Arctica will actually find it very easy to run itself, basically. Maybe more so, and find it easier even to organize themselves than any other nation here, for the simple reason that in the past, their own handful of necessities were really pretty much ignored because they were part of Canada, right? And the Greenland situation used to be a little different with partially into Denmark and whatnot. And they're, to some people, statistically neglectable interests and demands and necessities were greatly being ignored. They can finally cease ignoring their own necessities, and they can take care of them themselves. And you bring together two former territories of Canada and Greenland, which really has the same kind of interests and problems and whatnot. So you have three sets of experts coming together to join their expertise to actually run all of Arctica. And I'm pretty sure that Arctica will basically run just like that. Okay, but if you have doubts that 137,000 people cannot run a country, so to speak, yes, they can. And here, naturally, 775,000, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nations in Europe with less than 775,000. Okay, I assure you, nations that small can perfectly fine operate as a sovereign nation. Do not underestimate what 137,000 people can achieve in organizing themselves or any such. This is perfectly doable, perfectly fine. That is the second thing I wanted to mention. The third thing I wanted to mention, chances are I'm not perfectly sure if I explained it somewhat unclear, or if just visually it might have been misleading to some people. I might actually read too much into the ambiguity of this. Let me see here. This one here. I showed you these two maps, I think. This is your nations in North America, and this was your continent seen from a European perspective, where I explained which of your nations are allotted to which of our domains. And there might have been a mistake, or not a mistake really, there might have been some things might have been not as clear as they should have been, namely pertaining to what here on this map I called white lands. Okay, I do want to point out that Alaskan on this map happens to be white for no good reason other than that I wanted to use all kinds of colors. Okay, so Alaskan being white on this map does not indicate that it is a white land or any such, whereas on this map actually Alaskan and Otexiana are deliberately kept white because they are allotted to European Confederation domain all, right? Whereas the lime green is to the north, right? That would be Arctica, New Albion, and Menakakota, and so on and so forth. I just want to point out that here, this being white has no particular meaning, whereas here, this being white, as well as Otexiana being white, has particular meaning. I just wanted to point this out in case I confused a few people. That was the third thing I wanted to mention. The next thing I wanted to mention was actually a little mistake. I'm going to show you the mistake. I'm going to show you also what it used to look like. The mistake had to do with this final column here. Only this, right? Everything else was perfectly fine and correct. There was a wee little mistake in this column. Now, if you look at the formula for any field in this column, you see that there's a freakish little number here, 3.8 blah 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 blah. The mathematicians will understand how this number comes about. I do want to point out that in the video I still had this column not used the 3.8, but it used the 4 point something, which was from the early stages of me working on this table, where the precise number of sevenths allotted to these nations for sea defense were ever so slightly different, right? I fine-tuned this eventually and wound up with a different number of sevenths total, and thus what here is used as a factor in this multiplication ever so slightly changed, and that was why this final column was not correctly displayed. Actually, here I have a screenshot of the incorrect one. As you can see, the first and the second column are still unchanged, and nothing about this changed. Nothing about the 26.261 changed, by the way, just for completeness sake. Only that third column changed, and it changed only ever so slightly, right? It used to wrongly say in the video, in the second part of the video, 0.424 here, for instance, for Arctica, whereas the correct one is 0.4 straight for Arctica, and on the max end it's at 25.424 when it actually is 24% straight for Pacifica, sorry. So that was a little error. I could explain how this error came about additionally, other than me just having forgotten to a certain extent, because see, this is a nice example of how they sabotage. They want to paint me as either too stupid or too sloppy to do a ridiculous little spreadsheet for people. Okay, that is part of their discrediting routines. That is what I'm talking about when I say sabotaging routines. And incidentally, a whole lot of that shit is specifically originated by the ex-Germany Fexmundi. I got tons of ex-Germany Fexmundi sabotaging routines sicked my way again over these last couple of days. And this is just the side result of them, okay? That I rushed the recording of the video so much that I did not do a final check on whether it actually added up. I noted it because at some point of the video I had this here, and this here all highlighted as I do now. And as you can see here, it should say 300%, that it doesn't quite, it has to do with the rounding here, but this is actually correct, believe me, but it said something like 305%, because here in the final column there was a little too much because I had not changed that factor, okay? That was the wee little neglectable error. I have corrected it here. I actually left a comment under the second part of the video pointing out these correct numbers. I apologize for them. These are the correct numbers, okay? Nothing, though, has changed. That error had no effect over this here, right? The categorizing of the nations into A, B, C, and D did not change. I do want to point this out. So nothing else said in the video is wrong or to be corrected. It was just the precise numbers ever so slightly changed in this third and final column here, okay? But now it's correct, and this is how they correctly break down for the individual domains on North America. Okay, that's one thing that I wanted to correct and point out. So I've done that. And the final thing I want to mention in this here video, let's close numbers for that. Some people out there might say, well, okay, you restructured Europe, now you restructured North America. When can we expect the other continents to be restructured? And for this, I very clearly say, and I'm actually just going to write this down to have this visually in this video. I don't care what you think about me trying to do this here. I have good reasons for that. Let me write this down. I'm gonna make it a little larger. Other than the European and the North American continent, no other continent needs restructuring. Not by me, the prime protector of mankind, anyway. What does that mean? That means, I assure you, that there's absolutely no necessity to restructure Central and South America. There's absolutely no necessity to restructure Africa. When it comes to Asia, which world trade zone wise will be split up into three, actually, because Australia will actually be added, Oceania to be precise, not just Australia, will actually be added to one of those three that are partially also Asian. Even all of Asia and nothing else needs restructuring like that. However, some issues in Asia will have to be settled. I have mentioned in the past how the situation for Korea, the entire peninsula, it doesn't fucking matter if it's the north or the south of Korea, will be a very tough problem, what with the unspeakable deeds of specifically Korean fix mundi in all of Eastern Asia, especially in Japan, especially also in China and in other places over there. Chances are some of these nations will just decide to restructure the eastern end of the Asian continent by good old-fashioned classic war or any such method, which as prime protector of mankind I would do my darnest to prevent for sake of peacekeeping, but not really try to talk them out of it, because quintessentially it is their affair. Okay? What I want to make very, very clear is that inhumane technologies originated on Albion by the fucking Duke of Norfolk and his figurative orbit, 16th Duke of Norfolk, utilized by the Jews and brought to fucking America via the Duke and his figurative orbit and via the Jews and also via the Navy in North America, in the former US. This is how they wound up over in North America. And I want to point out that thus only Europe and North America needed restructuring by the prime protector of mankind, namely me. And no other continent needs restructuring. I want to point this out. There. And that is that. Thank you very much.